and later his career as a law teacher in Michigan gave him a lot of insights as to the public interest and public service. We have our own homegrown examples of Sardar Patel, Mahatma Gandhi. Particularly Mahatma Gandhi was a barrister from India. He went to UK to become to train as a barrister. After that, he started his career in Mumbai, and then he was sent to South Africa to resolve a dispute. And it is in South Africa that he confronted racism, and he stood up as the lone voice despite opposition. Stand up and speak. So if you look at legal profession, it's the noblest of the professions. It's the only profession which is mentioned in the Constitution of India. There is no other profession which has found a mention in the Constitution of India. How does it find the mention? When you're talking about Article 20, every accused shall have a right to have a lawyer. Now that is where the constitutional status of our profession comes in, that we speak not only for ourselves, we speak for others when there is injustice. So to choose law as a career, you have to have that deeper sense and calling to do justice. You have to have that feeling that things are not right. When they're not right, I'm not going to keep quiet, I'm going to speak up. So there is a very interesting history in India and elsewhere. If you see even references in religion. For example, we have the example of Shibi Chakravarti in the Indian context. If you look at the Daniel, the young man, in the biblical references, where the entire community was accusing a lady, a beautiful lady, breathtaking beauty that she is described to be, was accused of adultery because the men who were desiring her were not getting any kind of encouragement from her. So they accused her of adultery, and they were going to, as the customs prevailed then, they were going to stone her to death. It was this young Daniel who stood up and he said that, among you, who has not looked at this woman with the wrong desire, or who has not done any kind of immoral thought or immoral action, can cast the first stone. So it was Daniel who spoke for the lady, and he said, tell me, how many of you have witnessed this? How many of you have seen this? So when the statements were compared, it evolved that it was a blatant kind of lie. So we consider Daniel as the global ancestor of our profession. So in our profession, people are not supposed to ask for fees. If you look at the ancestry in legal profession, the lawyer's govern is supposed to be kind of a noble symbol of the profession, where you don't have pockets in the govern. There will be a little kind of pouch at the back of the neck. That means the client would pay not as a fee, but as a kind of heartfelt kind of gratitude-based return at the back of the lawyer in that govern's pouch. That means lawyer should not look at the fee. Lawyer should not expect the fee. That means this profession is anchored in public service, where you use your knowledge and your training to bring the derailed justice to normalcy, equilibrium of the society into normalcy. So justice has closely been bound up with peace, social equilibrium. It is bound up with happiness in the society, wellness in the society. So such is the noble background of our profession, which has created many leaders. If you ask me today, our profession has come through a long journey. The people who were trained in our profession built nations, they built communities, they built big movement like Rotary, which was anchored in philanthropy. It is the lawyers who have given shape to human activity in the form of organizations like corporates or non-governmental organizations, body corporates of people, which got the fiction of law to become an organic entity. They were the ones who advised how the state should be governed, how people should behave. So law regulates people's behavior. It defines our boundaries. It defines our rights. It defines the corresponding duties. It tells us where our powers are and where the limits of powers are. So constitution is the mother law of every country. So countries have written constitution or unwritten conventions of the constitution, as it is in the case of England. So if there is a long history of the evolution of the legal system and evolution of the constitution, but it is more pronounced in last 3 to 4 centuries, French, American, Canadian, UK, India. and later on countries which came out of the colonial fold. So our profession draws its validation from the law itself, and we are the ones who stand up to defend the constitution, to defend justice, to stand up for the weak or the meek. So our profession in Indian context also is defined to be a profession which draws its sanctity from the constitution. When the country went through emergency also, it was the lawyers who formed a cartel, went and evoked the public opinion in the US and other human rights fora and got our emergency to be lifted. So whenever constitution is under threat, it is our profession which stands to defend the constitution and bring the country back to normalcy. So many of you may be looking at LLB or BA LLB, BBA LLB as a fancy degree which makes you to wear that black coat and then get a status. But the deeper nuances of our profession is that if someone is committing injustice, even if it's a mighty elephant or an empire, we have the power to bring them down to kneel, to go back to their promises, to remind them of their duties, and to turn the wheels of justice for everybody's welfare. So I hope all of you understand. If we forget our innate mission of justice, our profession does not have any life breath. So law as the means to justice, the purpose of law to attain justice is something that we need to understand. So young law aspirants and their parents and their friends and well-wishers, please understand, if your child wants to do law, overnight a child might decide to do law. Why does the child want to do law? Ask the motivation. Is it because they watched a lawyer being eloquent in some Bollywood movie? Or is it because they felt the calling for justice? When my first batch of students come, when my students come for the first time and I address them along with their parents, I ask in the class, how many of you came here because you had a call for justice? 80% of the hands will go up. That means some or other time they felt the world is not right, things are not right, therefore they were driven into choosing the law. So when you come with that mission, then you have to also eke a living. So how do you convert it into a living? I want to highlight to you that as on today, there are a number of opportunities for law graduates, and there are a number of tracks in which you can reach this law qualification. Our country witnessed a huge historical change in the mid-80s when we converted legal education from the postgraduate 3-year course into a serious medical kind of professional degree with the integrated BA LLB. At that time, we said BSL LLB or BA LLB. Then we brought in many other nuances. By 90s, when India was globalizing, we started evolving courses like BCom LLB, BBA LLB, which will have a combination of corporate and business subjects and the law. And then we went on to create law universities, which are in the line of IITs and IIMs in management and technology. So we began with one national law school in Bangalore by mid-80s, which evolved, which led to or inspired other states also to grant land and validation. So we had the Hyderabad, the Nalsar opening, and thereafter Bhopal opening. And today we have more than 25 national law universities, single disciplinary universities. The story of Symbiosis is different. Symbiosis evolved with the law school. Symbiosis was created in 1971 as a network of international students who were in Pune, coming from underprivileged African countries who were forgotten. So our founder, Dr. S.B. Mazumdar sir, who was a botany professor in Ferguson College, managing the hostel as the rector, he saw the plight of these students and he started a network of Indian and foreign students called as Symbiosis. At that time, to gel well, they were given the English language training. So they never set out to do any institution or university. But Dr. Mazumdar sir was inspired by the reality of Pune, where we had only one law school, Indian Law Society, ILS Law School, by then 50 years old, which had created so many Supreme Court judges and lawyers. He thought that for the Pune milieu, which had military officers, which had automobile industry booming then, did not have an opportunity to do law because that law school had limited seats. That's how Symbiosis Law School was the flagship first institute under the Symbiosis banner. Very next year, Management Institute was created. So 1977, Symbiosis Law School, Pune was created. 1978, Management was created. And today we have more than 36 institutes under the banner. And our law school got so much demand in the post-2007 scenario because we had our own entrance exam, which is the only parallel exam to CLAT exam, which selects students for national law universities. Today, for Pune Law School, I get 25,000 applications for my 300 seats. When the law school started in 1977 also, the law school for its 300 seats had 3,000 applications. But today we have created a very different kind of history. Our students, our alumni are shining all over. 3 of our alumni have become sitting judges of Mumbai High Court, and I'm very proud to say 2 of them are women coming from very erudite background. And we have had our alumni leading most of the law firms in very eminent leadership roles, corporate roles, ministerial roles, then as Mofussil and higher level judicial officers, more than 50 officers we have across the country in different states. Abroad, they have been ministers, they have been big officers. We have had civil servants as well amongst our students. So this is the way in which we have grown. Now, by 2010, the walk-in demand for Pune resulted us in taking our law school to people's doorsteps. So we created the Noida Law School in 2010. The demand did not stop. So Hyderabad, we were invited there and we created our Hyderabad Law School in 2014. And in 2019, we created the Nagpur Law School. And our demand is increasing, but we may take some more time. We always think this is our last law school, we will not create, but every year demand goes up by 25%. So we are bringing the law school closer to the students. Now that is about the trajectory of how legal education has evolved. And Symbiosis Law School, Pune was the first one to introduce 5-year law course. Among the first few, it was the first to rub shoulders with national law schools, because ever since the ranking began, we have been among the top 5 in the country. Today, we are talking about 1,200 odd law schools, and we are still among the top 5 in the country. So there's a tough competition. A lot of good private law schools are coming up, but we are still maintaining our lead. Now, why does it maintain its lead? One is we give so much importance to the possibilities of growth within the career, because we are in the company of management school, information technology school, medical school, and also engineering school. We have a very new way of looking at law in an interdisciplinary context. So when we are looking at careers, in the beginning itself, we assess our students. So students come with certain notion because either their parents are lawyers or they have opportunity because of their family background. So they come with the idea, I want to be a corporate lawyer, I want to be in the UN, or I want to be a judge. So then we start what we call as designing them to the concept that they have. So first of all, what are the careers that we have studied and we have found out? When the historical lady Dean Martha Minow of Harvard Law School wanted to study the law curriculum in the globalizing context, she went to her alumni and she tried to find out how their study in the college was correlating with the careers that they were following. So from the feedback, she developed the curriculum and she developed the whole training process. We did somewhat similar thing. And our research shows that there are different types of law careers. So we have court-based careers, we have firm-based careers, we have got specialized lawyer kind of careers, we have got civil service and public service kind of careers, we have academic careers as well. So quickly I'll go through that. In a law firm-based career, we have got famous law firms with the turnover anything between 100 crores a year to 800 to 900 crores a year. We have different tiers of these law firms. So in those, you begin as a kind of associate, then you grow to the level of a partner, and sometimes you become a senior partner, depending on the contribution that you make and the expertise that you show. So when you join a law firm, it's like a company which is engaged in law practice. So there are 3 types of human resource divisions. One is where they go and represent the cases in the court. Second is where they consult the clients and find the client need and distribute the work. Third is where they do a lot of back office work, where they develop the files and they develop the consultation. So we have that. Secondly, we have consulting firms where they need lawyers. For example, if you're looking at investments, if you're looking at infrastructure, there's a huge contract which runs to thousands of pages. Sometimes lawyers are engaged in arbitration as well, in mediation as well. So in these cases, there is a vertical of client relation, there's a vertical of researching, and there's a vertical of documentation. Similarly, we have in big corporates a law department or a legal expert, either as a legal team. If they don't want to spend on legal team, they may outsource a law firm's service, and they may have one in-house lawyer or two in-house lawyers who will coordinate on behalf of the company with the legal needs. Thirdly, we have in the HR teams, the teams which recruit people, legal experts who will advise on how to choose the right person to run the administration or the personnel, and also about compliances to various governmental requirements. So as I put there, there is researching, counseling, consulting, courtwork. If you are a shy type of person, if you are a more research-oriented kind of person, you have these options of choosing which vertical you want to develop yourself into. Story doesn't stop there. There are companies which are highly specialized in information technology, highly specialized in media, highly specialized in entertainment, in sports law. We have companies which are specialized in generic corporate advisory. So I was understanding there are more than 100 types of law jobs to which we can design our students within the vertical of law firm based and corporate based career. Then we have specialist lawyers who are consulted, either solicitors. In Mumbai, we have solicitors who pass the international solicitors exam from the UK, or some of our students are qualified in the New York bar and other American bars and practice there. We have specialized IP lawyers, or IP lawyers being hired by the research and development wing of big pharma companies or big technology or manufacturing companies to advise on different kinds of intellectual property rights. We have the general counsels, we have the tax heads, we have the solicitors who represent the government, solicitor general, advocate general. So those kinds of things also emerge with this experience or the vice versa. Second type of career is court-based career. All of us we learn our tricks of the trade there. Sometimes directly you may be recruited from the law school, for which you have to build your CV by your internship, by your grade points, by your co-curricular and extracurricular engagement, which shows a 360-degree personality. And then within the court, you have litigation. Sometimes a traditional family of lawyers encourages its generation of lawyers to get into direct litigation because they already have briefs which are running. Then we have advocates. Then we have court, advocates on record, for which you have to go through an assessment test in High Court and Supreme Court. That's a senior advocate kind of role, or advocate on record, where you grow to become the senior. Today we have Prashant Bhushan. Today we have Arvind Datar. In most of the significant judgments, you would see these lawyers shaping the course of law and new judgments in Supreme Court, whether it is mercy killing, whether it is child marriage. It is these lawyers who have not taken much fee but have stood up for the public cause, who have shaped the minds of the judges as well to give the right kind of judgment. In the lower level of courts, we have got the criminal side being represented by prosecutors for the government, or government side being represented by government leaders. These are also considered as training track for judiciary, because some of them may attend the judicial exam and pass, or over the years, they may develop that seniority whereby their work will be recognized and they'll be nominated as judges. Today, for girls, I want to say there is a large gap or vacancy available at the top level. So you should not give up. Even after you get married, you should continue your commitment to our profession. So gradually, because marriage is not an end, it's only a passing phase. Biologically, going family way for 5 or 10 years, putting your years in cold storage does not mean that your competency to get into the mainstream law career will stop. For example, my own personal case, I had to put my career in a kind of slumber for nearly 3 years when I was bringing up my son single-handedly. But then I went back to the corporate career, and then I came back to my passion of academics, and where I used my career to contribute to Law Reform Commission, engage in corporate boards. So I have done a 360-degree kind of possibility. I was engaged with an NGO in Mangalore, shaping first of its kind of human rights and women's rights kind of law service. So this kind of possibility in our women's lives is very important. This is a little advice I want to give to girls, but we can speak later on. So I have listed there court-based careers at the level of junior level of courts or lower rung, and also in the higher rung. Then we have civil service, which are law jobs available in the state sector. We have got the Staff Selection Commission. We have got the Union Public Service Commission. You can opt for general civil service. In addition to that, we have Judge and Advocate General within the 3 wings of the army. And we have got Ministry of Law Justice researcher careers, where after your LLM or PhD, you can apply for these jobs which are advertised in employment news or in the general newspaper by the government. These are called Indian Legal Service careers. Now, government will immediately pass the Indian Judicial Service Bill, because of which entire judicial service is also going to take a competitive look, just like the civil service. We've got the Legal and Treaty Division in the Ministry of External Affairs, where experts in international law with PhD or MPhil can compete for these positions. There are many UN jobs where law careers are very, very lucrative, and you may be placed in a very risky kind of job. I have one of my students from Mangalore who was representing UN Refugee Commission, and she worked in Afghanistan and other places for women. We have Indian corporate service, where again, competitively in civil service, if you get certain ranks, you will be given these jobs. So you can work in the Indian corporate ministry as an officer in forming. Then we have large corporate lawyer, independent lawyer kind of avenues, where you can independently practice with corporate matters. Corporate matters right from labor law to environmental law, permissions from the government, defending the corporate for violation of the law, shaping the compliances of the corporate. Nowadays, it is IT driven. Earlier, I said, even in the courts now, e-justice has come. So combined expertise in law and technology is very much required. Some of you science students, there is a lot of demand. Some of you who are engineering graduates, in engineering, you may not have lucrative career. So you can always look at a 3-year law program and lend your expertise to these upcoming techno-driven law careers. I'm shaping a student who is an engineering graduate into project management kind of law career, because India is going to have huge foreign investment. Of course, COVID has slowed it down, but it will come. We have infrastructural and other kinds of projects coming up, investments here. So we lawyers are going to shape that. Then there is labor officers, public sector union. You know, there are many public sector companies for which law officers are recruited every year. You know how they are recruited? National Law School's entrance examination for LLM is the channel. There your score is taken into consideration if you are interested in these jobs. Then we have legal process outsourcing companies like Mindcrest, etc., which get the global legal service online, and then it needs lawyers like you. Then I have already told, now fraud investigation, we need lawyers there. Asset reconstruction, we have this insolvency and bankruptcy code. Under that, we need huge band of lawyers. And now with COVID, there is going to be more cases of insolvency when people are not going to pay back their loans. We need insurance specialists, we need forensic experts assisting the court sometimes. Insurance specialists are required for people to manage their money, to secure their assets, and to create an indemnity in case of unforeseen events. We have got media and law fitment. We don't have much legal knowledge among the media professionals, very few. You have got one Sabyasachi or someone who covers the Supreme Court beat, where expert news comes out. Otherwise, our local channels sometimes may misreport or underreport. So here, law experts should be consulted by media persons, or law experts have good careers in the media line. I urge all the reporters in the media line to do at least a diploma in law. Law reporting and publishing is a career which is going to be very important, and there is a real dearth of experts. Then legal videography. Future is going to be a lot of video-based evidence being brought. Now with COVID also, we had that course are running with the video-based testimonies, etc. So their media experts are going to be very important to generate this kind of techno-driven material for the court, and material about the way in which judiciary is working and law department is working. Now comes the research career. Research is core to all the law careers. In our entire life, we have to be wedded to Saraswati. We cannot ever complain about, ours is lifelong learning kind of profession. So we advise, there are a number of professions coming up in the policy and research area. If you see now national law schools and our students, at least 10% of students go abroad, study, come back as policy advisors, start their own research center with the big grants, and assist the government in making policy. So we have analysts, researchers, and academic leadership, where I am and some of my colleagues are, Today, if you look at Indian law schools, the 20% vacancy in the professor and associate professor level is really vacant because we don't have takers for that. Abroad, brilliant law graduates never compromise on academics. Best go to the academics. My professor used to say in Ireland, dregs of the profession go to the profession. Whereas in India, best go to the profession because it's lucrative, there's a lot of money, there is a kind of social prestige involved. And people like us who want to be hermits and who want to be wedded to the idea of research, we come to the academics. But my role is a little different. Academic leadership. Now, today, if I'm opening a new law school, I'm not able to find leaders. I'm not able to find a director material because they may be good in teaching, they may be good in publication, but all the combination of a good personality is missing. So I have some students who have become entrepreneurs. They run their own coaching classes, they run their own judicial training classes. So that kind of entrepreneurship avenue is available. Administrators, lawyers make the best administrators because if the managers look at efficiency alone, lawyers look at efficiency and ethics, because of which they protect the organization in terms of the risk that may come because of violation of rules or ethics or law. Now, there is a last type of career which I've identified, which is non-governmental organizations. We have one student from National Law School, Bangalore, creating history. She was the one who was behind this migrants being flown to Chhattisgarh and others, Nupur. She runs a very good non-governmental organization in Gujarat and Chhattisgarh, consolidating the tribals and using the law to protect their rights and to empower them. We have in Mangalore Deeds, which has got the legal arm, which is doing wonderful work with the destitutes and women. We also have Ms. Rita Narona, who has taken up a lot of cases of rape survivors and others and gone to the court fighting for those who are not able to fight for themselves, especially for women and the minority. We have business entrepreneurs as well with the law degree, and time has come now. Once upon a time, finance people or marketing people became the CEOs and they ruined the organization. We have our own districts example. But when a lawyer enters the CEO role, the organization has shown stability. When lawyer enters presidential role also, organization shows stability. So this is about it. Therefore, when you are planning your career today to enter the law, study how you should be cultivating your personality. I must tell you that the personality should have these traits. One is oratory. You should be able to speak at any time, stand up and speak. That means it asks for coherent way of thinking, coining your words, courage to speak, clarity in speech, communication skills. The language, for lawyers, language is their weaponry. You should know where to use the exact word, how to use, because your words are your tools. It's necessary to have other traits. For example, inquisitive nature, not to accept anything until it passes through the logical screen or filter. So your inquisitive nature, your attention to detail, logical reasoning, persuading, not giving up. In the court, judge will say no, but you don't give up. You try to persuade. Sometimes judges get so angry. I recently heard of a case in the US where the judge asked the lawyer to be put for symbolic imprisonment for one night. So sometimes lawyers get so angry with your, judges get so angry with your persuasiveness, but you should not give up. Sound judgment, your ability to clinically, like how doctors look at the case, you also should be able to look at the case emotionally, distancing yourself and do things which are good for your client. And the writing ability. You have to have very good drafting capacity. Judges will tell you how badly sometimes lawyers draft. So drafting skills are very important. Now we have 4 A's, which are our important traits, which is our attitude, our aptitude, our ability to analyze, our analytics, dissecting and seeing, our adaptability. Whenever new laws come out, we should be immediately able to have it in our fingertips. So we teach our students something called IRAC analysis, whereby a big case can be broken down. I call it as legal anatomy. We break it down and we give the gist. There's a certain methodology, scientific methodology. When a big legislation comes, how to cut it into pieces and understand it. And techno-driven offices, we have to have that perseverance as a quality, not to give up, not to be irresponsible. We are responsible to our clients. We have to keep communicating. We have to track emotional and financial intelligence, our capacity to understand other human beings, collaborate with others. Today, law profession is not standalone profession, egoistic profession, because law is an ocean. You can be expert only in a small area. So when a case comes to you with some other area, you have to resort to collaboration by reference, where you can keep a part of the fee with mutual understanding, and you both can sit and draft. I remember Jetmalani sir used to take us as researchers, our students as researchers, sit with us and take the conceptual clarity. And he would bring another lawyer, another international attorney, and sit at a table and discuss the concept. Similarly, we have one important quality called time management. Our profession is such a stressful profession because you have 100 people bombarding from 100 sides. You have to please the court, you have to know the law. So how do you divide your job within the law firm? How do you divide your time? And keep a little bit of time for personal exercise, meditation, and also to sort out your work and not to disappoint the God who is your client, and also another God, namely the court. So these are important traits. Therefore, when you choose a law school, please choose a law school which keeps you so busy and also teaches you something to organize your time. For example, in Symbiosis Law School, a student works not just 4 hours of class and roaming around in the afternoon. Whole day we keep them busy, and then we keep them busy in the holidays for internship. It's very well structured. Each activity has got certain competency development, and the students who engage fully are guaranteed of supreme success at a very young age. We call it as practice readiness or profession readiness. Therefore, our students are picked up like hotcakes because they are ready. Because they, in their internship also, they convince their bosses that they are better than the old law. So what next? Should you choose the law career or not? And if you are choosing it, then who are your 3 friends? First, you see your interest. Are you really interested in, this is not an easy profession. They call it as a jealous wife, because this is the kind of profession which does not allow you to do anything else. I have lost a lot of my friends and family over the years. Dedication is something important, because when you find a time, you're more interested in what's happening in the public arena, what's happening with the rule, and how this new human behavior is going to be causing threat to justice. So I was speaking about COVID, I was speaking about so many things. It's a story of all lawyers. Second is your ability. Do you have those traits in you? Are you a good debater? Are you good in communication? If you are not, then you may go, are you good in research and not good in communication? You still have opportunities in the legal career. So look at your ability. And third is, what are the opportunities that you have? If your family already has that background, if you already have certain extra courses that you have done, then you get into this profession. So keep a role model, keep a plan A, plan B, and choose a mentor and make a plan to win. That's what I tell my students. I get the mentors from my alumni, from various professions that I already told you: court-based, corporate-based, independent, civil service, research. So Advocate Prashant Bhushan, who is one of the front runners in the Supreme Court, talks about looking at law not as a means of money, but as an instrument to secure justice, to engage in issues of public interest. Thomas Jefferson, the one-time American president, said, who was instrumental in a lot of epoch-making decisions in the US, that law study is useful in a variety of point of view. Once you qualify as a law person, that word man is an old-fashioned word. We have to read it as person, to be useful to oneself, neighbors, and the public. That is the beauty of our profession. So when you're choosing the best law school, see if that law school complies with the Bar Council rules. Is there a moot court there? Is there a moot court hall there? Is there a computer lab there? If it is not training you in technology, then go for a better law school which can train you. So every year we need at least 70,000 law graduates joining the profession, and we have more than 70,000 jobs coming up, but they are sporadic everywhere. And many students are not job ready. I was reading about how engineering graduates in our country are 70% are not employable because they don't have the necessary skills. So same fate is suffered by many law students. So we need to have that internship and work training avenue when we are students ourselves. I remember when I was a student, I was regularly in the court. I was watching. I entered the legal studies out of some kind of compulsion because I was a good student of science, but because of the family litigation and things like that. But I don't regret, because the intention was to do good. It led to a good conclusion. So a good law school you have to choose by means of looking at, is it innovative law school? Is it having global connection? Is it rubbing shoulders with the best in the world and best in the country? So if you look at Symbiosis Law School, we have got a very unique program. BBLLB, we were the pioneers in this country. 1 year LLM, we were the pioneers. We have revived our 3-year law program in 2014, and we get 1:10 kind of application for that also. And we have a very rigorous personality test before we admit 3-year law course students. And we have, and even 5-year law course students. And all round internationalization. We have internationalization of curriculum. We have opportunity for faculty from abroad to come and teach. I teach with the American teacher or European teacher in my class, co-teaching. We have legal writing being taught by an American professor who is flown for this special purpose. In 1 month, students' mind is open to think like lawyers. We have a very comprehensive curriculum which has got ethics, law, and skills. One of the interesting courses we have is devised by us called contemplative lawyering, where we train lawyers to de-stress themselves and to commit themselves to the ethics and values. So a lot of these law students have some therapeutic issues. They undergo a lot of stress. So this course is the one which gives them insight on how to face uncertainty and how to de-stress. We have got publications and research at the national and global level. We have got more than 3 crores of funding from Europe and other places, which we have competed in a competitive bidding for research and for curriculum development. Our curriculum makes students profession ready and job ready with the all-round student development. See, one of the snapshots, this will tempt you to come to our law school, where students themselves run the show. We are just in the shadow, we shape them and we give them opportunity. Our Student Bar Association is a very successfully run student bar association. This is just a glimpse of how many programs we run. What is our student strength? 1,738 full-time students are researchers. Now we have gone to cross hundreds of publications in Scopus. So I just want to give you a couple of testimonies where a student qualified to New York Bar, another student topped the Oxford College in law and finance combination. So these are some of the highlights. Our law student is not only looking at our faculty is also very erudite faculty we have got. These are some of the experts who were and who are involved, like Upendra Bakshi, Dr. My mentor also, Justice Lokur has been involved in humanizing our agent. Professor Rebecca Todd, who is an attorney from New York, she is with us all the time. So these are some of the big law firms who are engaged in developing our students. So these are the kinds of law careers. Large percentage of our students go to law firms, and about little less than that go to corporate careers. And then there is individual law practice, higher education abroad, and some in India. And a lot of students are now pursuing what we call as personal law practice. They may go to corporate career for some time, then they come back to the profession, because there is no joy like our profession when you defend a case, when you support a client. So we have a very robust community legal service program where we work with the prisoners, with the sex workers, with the underprivileged poor in the 27 villages surrounding our university, where we work closely with our community doctors. So we have our induction program, career counseling program, resume writing, training in various career competencies. When the student has to appear for a job opportunity, we have a rigorous training. When a student has to go for a mooting, we have a rigorous training. So we have a lot of scholarships also, government scholarships and other scholarships that we support. So when you are choosing law school, you have to be preparing yourself well, having a mentor in place to summarize, have a plan, ask yourself, are you motivated by deep calling? Today, if you want to plan your entry into the law school, in 3-year law course, you can directly apply, and then you have personality test and essay writing. In LLM, we have an all India level entrance exam. Both national law schools have a separate exam. We have a separate exam. And then there is a written sample and an interview. In undergraduate exam, ours is the only law school which has got both written tests, and then we screen 2,000 people, and those 2,000 have to go through a personal interview and an essay writing. This year, because of COVID, we are putting the essay writing as part of the entrance exam. Usually our SLAT or Symbiosis Law Admission Test used to have 150 questions in 5 divisions. This year we are reducing it to 90 questions, and we are giving a half an hour essay writing as part of this test itself, because students can't travel to Pune. And personal interview we are conducting online. So 50% weightage is to the test score, and based on the screening of the test, 2,000 students are taken ahead to their interview process, and interview and written sample account for 50%. So you can look at that. We test our students on language comprehension, psychometrics, analytical and logical reasoning, which also has mathematical dimension, general knowledge, and legal aptitude. Almost a similar structure is adopted by National Law School Entrance Test, which is called CLAT. We have an LSAT examination, which is monitored by American Bar Association, and some law schools in India are taking LSAT score. In LSAT, it is only language and psychometry and little bit of legal aptitude. So this test is taken by Jindal and some other private law schools. CLAT is taken by national law schools. SLAT is only for symbiosis law schools, 4 law schools. Now, the nature of competition, I told you, in Symbiosis Law School, Pune, 21,000. As on today, I've got 21,000 applications for my 300 seats. So to succeed in our profession and as a student in the law school and in your profession, you need discipline, you need interest, the passion, engaging continuously, consistently. It's like meditation. Jetmalani sir used to say, this is like meditation. You cannot have any diversion and make the best of it. So that's all I've got to say. I think I took longer than Brian had assigned time for me. So if you have questions, you are welcome to ask, and it'll be my privilege to answer your questions. I hope I'm permitted to stop the sharing.
Yeah. Please carry on.
Thank you.
Dr. Shashikala, I think some of the questions that I received in advance, you have already covered in your presentation.
Right.
Like, for instance, what kind of aptitude do you need to be a lawyer?
Yes.
Now, you've covered that. But on behalf of the person who is asking the question, I wouldn't like to share the names and all that.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you one specific question. What is that one thing that will actually motivate you to be a lawyer in you? What kind of aptitude? What is that one aptitude that will make you want to be a lawyer?
See, we can look at 2 things. One is the motivation. The motivation is human suffering, the pain experience that you have gone through.
So the empathy.
Pain can make you, pain may be your own pain or empathy for someone else's pain. You read that story of that migrant woman or a child walking with blisters. That's human suffering. Bhupendra Bakshi says that when you are responding to human suffering, you are really doing your job as a justice worker. A lawyer is a justice worker, not a justice leader, not a justice owner. Justice defender means we are servants of justice. Therefore, we are servants of that concept of justice, not just justice system. Being the servants of concept of justice and constitution, we should also be fearless in questioning when the system does not respond to the vulnerable. So that is the motivation, responding to human suffering.
Correct. But the question is now, when you start to choose law as a career, you are at the adolescent stage. You are in the PUC.
Yeah.
How is it possible for you to visualize these things as you choose a career?
See, our students, these adolescent students are in our generation. They are the students in late 20s. They are 10 years ahead of their time because they are exposed to information boom and explosion at a very young age. The school education is quite a quality education that they receive. So schools also take them on field work and project-based learning, whether it is ICSE school or CBSE school. See, today I have got applications from students who could have easily, I have one student who is my star student. I'm preparing him for Rhodes Scholarship. He got admission in IIT Kharagpur. He got admission in AIIMS, but he chose to come to Symbiosis Law School. So academic prowess coupled with, if you are intelligent, then the purpose of your life, if you are capable, then the purpose of your life is not just to make a living for yourself. God has created you to be responsible to so many others who may not be endowed with that kind of aptitude. So a lawyer has to realize, or somebody who is aspiring for law should realize, this is dedication to public service using your capacity.
But most people who join the law profession also, as you rightly said in your presentation, would also like to earn to have a livelihood.
Yes.
They have to support a family.
Yes.
So when that comes into play, what happens to your right versus wrong and rights versus duties.
See, Jethmalani sir used to say, we used to challenge him, why do you defend someone like Dawood Ibrahim? Or why do you defend all those bad, so-called bad people? We judge people. A lawyer cannot judge. Advocating, we are not deciding. It is for the court to decide. We are guiding the court to decide in the right way. So we have got our own duty. We are officers of the court. We are not standalone entities. We are connected to the larger network of justice system. Therefore, as a lawyer, you are supposed to study your law well. You are supposed to study your client's brief well. Sometimes lawyers do not do that. They have 100 cases strewn all over, because of which the client may suffer as well. That's the flip side of our profession. So our primary commitment and our primary duty is to protect our client and to defend our client and to believe, to have reiterate ourselves that we are the officers of the court and we are justice workers. So making a living, we have got some cases which are bread and butter cases, some cases which are passion cases, and then there are some cases which come uninvited. So you have to, sir used to say, and there are many others who used to say, that any case that comes, converting it into an opportunity, converting it into a stepping stone to enhance your profession, is that innate sense of smartness. A lawyer is supposed to be smart. So that presence of mind is the quality that lawyer is supposed to have in order to use every case as a learning avenue and to build the profession with that every case. They do it with that commitment and dedication and satisfaction of the client. Both our professions, lawyers and doctors, suffer from this evil of paternalism. We think that we know. What does that client know? Never say that. Never believe that. Today, client also has access to information. Patient also has access to information. So believing that your profession is today accountable. Unfortunately, if you look at professionally, if you look at Ireland and England, legal profession was brought under Consumer Protection Act first. In India, still it is not brought under Consumer Protection Act, whereas we brought the medical profession under Consumer Protection Act. So in our professions, our professional council only looks after our good conduct, and our misconduct should be reported to the professional council. So we are, our profession, any professional for that matter, is trusted as autonomous and responsible to regulate themselves. Therefore, high ethical commitment, high public service commitment, and working with that expertise to satisfy your client and as the officer of the court, the ends of justice, are the important traits that lawyer has to remember.
But justice, according to one of the questions I've just received, sometimes when innocent people get convicted, then does the lawyer get disheartened? That's the question that I've received actually.
Yeah, very good point. When the patient dies, does the doctor get disheartened? No, because doctor has got 100 reasons. Some physiology itself might be different. In some cases, hospital may not have the proper infrastructure. Let us compare it to legal profession. You may not have a judge who is able to think like you. Many lawyers come and tell me the quality of judicial officers who are coming now is a problem. That's why Dr. Menon started National Judicial Academy, and judicial training happens by seniors in the profession. We have had judges who have changed the course of destiny in this country for many people. So it is not that disappointing, but once in a while such things happen. So when we have a setback in the profession, we have to ask the question, why did it happen? And look at the soul searching and improve that factor. Therefore, justice is not an absolute concept. It's a relative concept. It is justice according to law. So when it is justice according to law, the substantive law under which your client's case is coming, whether the client had a good case. Sometimes clients have unreasonable expectation. They may not be having rightful claim to that particular demand that they have with the lawyer, and it may not have sufficient evidence which is validated by the court as per the process of the court, judicial process, and then they may expect justice. Then lawyer should not think like a client. Lawyer should think like a lawyer. In the fairness of the circumstances, based on the basis on which the case was fought, the court always decides not on the basis of who has the best right. It decides on the basis of who has a better right. So between the two, who had more evidences, whose construct within the law was presented better, is taken as the basis.
Okay, there's one interesting question here. Let's say I want to become a lawyer and I want to join the best law school. Obviously, it's Symbiosis. Of course, there are the national law universities also.
Yeah.
What is the cost of education versus the reward post qualification? What is the equation?
See, I must tell you that when we did legal education degree with 3,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees, even now some state universities will give you a law degree with 5,000 rupees. You please don't swindle your parents by your demand. You go by the capacity and the possibility that your parents will provide, respect them. Or today you are empowered to avail bank loans also. On your own capacity. After 2 years of your degree, you can slowly start repaying, and there's a very meager amount of interest charged. So choice is yours. Learn all those choices. Now, return on your investment, you will have to make some compromises. I'll tell you, I've got students who soon after law school chose to do a corporate career, a lucrative paying career. So they worked very hard. They barely slept for 3 hours towards their third and fourth year, and they made so many internships to their credit, convinced their bosses, worked hard. Because sometimes in lead law firms, you may get 2 hours of sleep on a continual basis for 1.5 months when they have the business. So that kind of commitment you have to have, and you can make those top 20 or 30 law jobs, which will be enabling you to pay back your loan within 1 year also. So I have had brilliant students who made this compromise for taking a career, paying immediately for 2 to 4 years, and then they pursued their passion. They went abroad, they did their degree, or they went to Indian law schools and did their LLM. Partially, they developed their own little chamber practice. And as I told you, bread and butter cases are there, like empanelment on a bank, empanelment on a legal advisory panel, where there is a steady income which is coming. Then you get the brief. The brief may be provided by that organization where you are empaneled, who may send you consulting. So you have to create, they say that for success, there are 3 formula. One is extremely good expertise in your field. Second is hardworking. Third is most important, where a lot of people do not become successful, networking. You have to know exactly. That's why our alumni network, which we form, that's why going to a good law school, investing a lot of money. For example, today my legal education cost will be 3.5 lakhs a year. Plus your stay will cost another 1 lakh, food and stay. And then this wear and tear of traveling to your parents, going for internship, etc. So you have to keep per year at least 5 lakhs on hold, 5 to 6 lakhs on hold. So that will mean 30 lakhs. You can easily earn that 30 lakh within 2 years, even in a moderate kind of law job, if you are coming in the top 20% or 30% of the lot. If you don't, then you slog in the court, you postpone that struggle for 2 more years, enter the profession immediately, take your license, attend All India Bar exam, and you start observing the court, start engaging, get your network done. 2 to 3 years of practice. Many corporates want in-house lawyers. There are many law officer jobs which are coming up. So you repay loan with that. So there is no end to our profession. There is only a modification. So for us, depending on the needs that we have to cater to, 4 to 5 transformation we undergo in our life as legal professionals. You ask any legal professional, go to your neighborhood lawyer and find out, how did that lawyer start? How did that lawyer evolve? And even in the Mofussil towns, we have got a lot of caste politics, consolidation of 2 to 3 lawyers of 90% cases. You can always break. I had a historical experience of one of my students who broke the monopoly of a particular community in criminal law and monopolized the criminal cases within 4 years of entering the practice. Of course, he did aggressive networking, hard work, and he was the gold medalist. So it always is a combination of these things, and how you take your life into control and how you discipline yourself and plan your success. I hope I made it clear.
Yeah, absolutely. One question that has been asked of me is criminal versus civil law practice. How difficult is one over the other?
See, as I told you, civil law is an ocean. Criminal law is very limited statutes, 3 or 4 statutes, and then working with the criminal justice administration system like the police, and then working it through. I personally feel in the early stage of the career, you cannot distinguish criminal and civil. You should take any case that comes if you're practicing as a lawyer. But today the stage has come of blurring of the division. I'll show you. If you are a corporate lawyer, or if you are a lawyer who is engaging with any kind of case that comes to you, you will be engaged by a company, let us say. The company says that all my legal needs you take care. Let your law firm take care. Now, I told you already more than 150 statutes are governing the company, the operation of the company. There are criminal laws as well. Suppose you are not treating your sewage well, then you are slapped with the fine. You are also slapped with the nuisance order from the local administration. That's criminal law. So we can't have this kind of thinking, civil practice, criminal practice. When I finished my law degree in mid-80s, late 80s, we had this kind of thinking, and we were totally misguided by my colleagues, my teachers, and my professional friends. Because for them, the insecurity is a very oratorial, bright young person coming in their way where they will snatch our bread. And we Mangaloreans have a very bad habit of thinking world begins and ends with Mangalore. If you look at our country, 40% of financial operation is concentrated in Mumbai. Another 20% goes to Delhi. Another 20% in Bangalore. Rest are in Chennai, Calcutta. So we have the kings or queens of these legal practices having their hub of activity in Mumbai, because that's where money is. And they have their little offices everywhere. Today with technology, the boss sits, MD sits in one office. Like as a dean, I sit here and I connect to my other 3 law schools and I try to find out every month what's going on. So my boss sits in her office and she tries to find out what's going on in 30 plus institutes in the higher education and her number of schools. So it's always a kind of how we organize our profession. Again, I told you, adaptability in our profession. We should be able to adapt ourselves to the changing situation, because law has to be bound up with the change. Stability should be there, change should be there. It's a very fine balance. You have to have a stable office, you have to have a stable competence and identity as a specialist. But at the same time, you have to be adaptable to the nuances. Did you ever think that CEO of a 60,000 crore company is under the threat of imprisonment? How did criminal law come to such a rich man's problem or rich woman's problem? In America, jails are going to be filled with litigation against GE, because there was insider trading and mismanagement. Somebody like Rajat Sharma, who created ISB Hyderabad and whose house was like a Dharmachatra for everybody, he was like a parallel Indian state in the US, was in the prison. 25,000 crore scam was detected in Sahara, and the MD of Sahara was behind the bar. Supreme Court showed no mercy. So this is the power of law, and this is the reality of law, where the distinction between civil law and criminal law are of not much significance unless you are practicing in a official court. So please don't keep a rigid mindset. You are tomorrow, and tomorrow is going to unfold in wonderful ways. Don't believe or limit yourself by these discouraging, moronic, this is good, this is not for you, this is for you. You decide what is for you by exploring. That is why adventure is one of the, and courage are important traits in our profession.
And there is one interesting question here. Let's say I become a lawyer. Should I become a judge?
It is not should I. Can I become a judge?
If I can.
Yeah. See, as a judicial officer, once again, it's a very, in India, bench is fed by the bar. It is a lawyer who qualifies to be a judge. First, you have to be a lawyer. Unlike in European countries where there are career judges. When you do your law degree, directly you can go to the Judicial Academy and train yourself to be career judge. In India, career, now it may begin with the Indian Judicial Service. Otherwise, we have the bar feeding the bench. Should you be the judge? First, you start practicing as a lawyer. You see where you don't get the feel of the water until you get into the swimming pool. Some people are so scared, they wet their feet and run away from the swimming pool. Then even if you put them in the pool, they may get suffocated and die out of fear rather than the water. So first you wet your feet, get into the pool, have a feel, then you decide whether it should be butterfly or breaststroke. So whether it is judiciary, you are cut out for judiciary. First of all, you should be happy in not being public, because our profession gives us this. Our profession is a lot about people skills and being with the people, about talking, about resolving, about counseling. So suddenly, as a judge, you will have, unless you are looking at court-based mediation or pre-litigation settlement of disputes, as a lawyer, as a judge, you get much less chance to interact with people. You have to be living a life of hermit. Are you prepared for that? Is that your personality trait? So what does your heart say? Go with your heart, follow your heart. So your heart may skip differently once you enter the profession, and you may find more excitement in defending cases and working with the documentation, giving a consultancy, rather than sitting and listening to people's sob stories and deciding the cases. So it's you who have to decide. So can you be a judge is to be decided by the competencies and traits and the likings that you have. I told you, capacity, opportunity, interest. Now, my law commission mentor, ex-chairman Justice Reddy, was heading the Judicial Pay Commission as well. Sir had taken some survey from us. So sir is looking at recommending minimum 1 lakh salary for judges per month. So most of our students were surveyed, and other law schools also we surveyed. Why students are not entering judiciary? The reason was the pay. So in the beginning in our profession, we don't get much money. So definitely many brilliant students, promising students, passionate students may come to judiciary if the salary and perks and security are improved. So this is also an adventurous profession. If you are a person who is not, I mean, as lawyer, sometimes you are the boss of your own life, you are more self-employed. So the tendency to work within a system might be less there. So are you okay to work within the system, to be less vibrant, to be less meeting people? Ask those questions. If you're okay, then you get into it.
Okay, and one last question. I think we are already over time, but one last question is that I think it's going to be very interesting for students. It's asking me, which is better, a 3-year LLB or a 5-year LLB? That's number one. Number two, once I finish my law degree, should I practice for a little while and then try for a LLM or a specialization, or should I go into it straight away? These are the two questions that have been asked.
First question, 3-year or 5-year, which is better? I don't compare. It's like comparing apples and oranges. The advantage in 3-year is that you have an opportunity of doing a science degree, medicine or engineering, and there is a lot of need for such specialized lawyers, people who know the field to handle these cases, because healthcare in our country has got only 2% investment of the GDP. A time will come now with COVID and other experience that there will be a heavier investment of the GDP and more private players and others coming in, which will require more and more lawyers to organize these operations. So 3-year law course, somehow Dr. Menon had a problem with the 3-year law course, but go to an institute which has a serious 3-year law program. That's very important. Second thing about 3-year law course is that both 5-year and 3-year law course are not viewed as in a similar manner by law firms. Because for law firms, these 3-year course people are a little rigid. My experience with 3-year law course has been that the brilliant of the students come in 5-year law course, whereas in 3-year law course, they come because they want that symbiosis tappa, or they come because they want to be running their parents' office. Seldom they go for judiciary. And I am a 3-year law course product. But I took my 3-year law course like a 5-year law course. I was 24/7 in the law school or in the house studying law. But very few highly motivated students you find in the 3-year law course, because they have come to have that additional degree for promotion or to do something extra to have just as a backup. Therefore, your motivation is very important, which determines whether that is better or this is better. I would distinguish it on case-to-case basis. In my 3-year law course program, I have not increased my 60 seats, although Bar Council has allowed me to do 120. Because in 60, I find 6 to 12 as highly motivated, those who come from MBA, or company secretary, engineering, medicine background. Rest of them need to be really motivated. So I take a personality test and then I bring them in. because they come from different kind of undergraduate background, political background. In undergraduate days, they would have engaged in so much of other kinds of university activities. So they use this as a kind of launch pad for something else. So we filter them very carefully so that I have a very studious batch who are motivated and dedicated. Therefore, your peer group also matters. But the advantage in 3 years, I'll tell you, I don't want to disappoint or discourage any of you, because you are already 21 or 22 on an average when you join the 3-year law course. The maturity which is required for law is there. Therefore, the reception process and connection is better, and the handling is better. Stress levels are a little bit less. My 5-year law course students also, I see, they become more motivated, serious and focused, especially boys, after they are in the 3rd year. So 20, 21 is the right age, in my opinion, to get them into that profession. That is why we have simply imitated abroad. We have not gone deeper into the human side of it. If you look at England and Ireland and all these countries, after 12th, they do the law degree, but they do civil law degree of 3 years. And for profession, there is a separate track after that. So after that track, you can go directly into masters or you can go into profession. My husband was a BCL degree holder from Ireland, did his 1-year masters in Warwick, and at the age of 21, he was teaching in Sheffield. Because by 21, he had LLM degree in his hand. He decided, I am cut out for scholarship and not for profession. His friends went for barrister, solicitorship. So this is the way in which they do. Americans, under no circumstances, Harvard will have the 5-year law course. It will have 3-year law course simply because they know that graduates are mature to handle. Imagine, in your first year, you're learning law of torts. A 17-year-old, how will the 17-year-old understand in contract Balfour versus Balfour case, or in case of tort Gloucester Grammar School case? You have to have that world view. You have to engage in human operations. You were till your 12th in your grinds, your mother made the meals and you came home, your tuition was there, your classes were there. What life experience do you take? You are in the cosseted, protected environment of your parents. That's why 3-year law course has got its own innate advantages, or it may be cushioning those disadvantages which are causing stress because of the age and lack of life experience in 5-year law course. That's the only part I want to bring to your attention. Therefore, you have to take your first 3 years as studious years and then get into operational angles, or don't miss any life experience. Start engaging with the profession in your year 1 itself as 5-year law course students in a small way. Now, your next question was about
LLM.
should I go directly to LLM? There was a theory when I was graduating that if you don't go to LLM immediately, you get into practice, you have your clients' briefs. You can't let your clients down and then go for higher studies. But today things have changed. We have got LLM online. We have got LLM where you can have your office handed over to your junior and you can take a break and do your 1-year LLM. LLM is 1 year in India as well in selected law schools. So I personally feel there is a new theory which has come up that for learning there is no age limit. Learning is lifelong. Therefore, a lot of my students, as I told you, for financial and other reasons, would do their profession for 2 years. Then they develop interest in a specialized area. They go take that special degree. They come back, as you correctly said. I'll give you a case study. I had two students, one girl who was working in the taxation division of a lead law firm. And after 2 years, that law firm sponsored her. She went to Harvard and did her taxation LLM. Law firm absorbed her back. She was very pivotal in bringing lot of policies and changes in that law firm. And after her bond was over, she became independent. I had another student who worked for 2 years. Then he found his calling in legal profession because his father was a lead lawyer in the Supreme Court. He went to New York, took his master's and qualified as an attorney there, came back to India. Now he is working in a law firm which has got its cases from there also. Then I have another student who has gone soon after LLB. He was very passionate from the beginning to do international taxation. I introduced him to a Dutch expert who was a global taxation expert. He did his 1-year degree there, and then he went to, this mentor only put him in the US. Today he is one of the top global experts in a very niche area called transfer pricing. So these examples will show to you that there is a lot of advantage in specializing, whether you do it soon after LLB or after a couple of experimenting in practice, couple of years of experimenting in practice to find where you are interested. This boy was passionate in the law days itself. This girl found her calling after 2 years of practice. So each one's path and journey depends. Therefore, please keep that kind of openness. Indians, we need to come out of our colonial mindset that somebody has to tell us what to do. No, you find out, you listen to everyone. Please listen, please respect. But decision is yours by putting yourself through that process of asking, is this right for me? Am I interested? If you're interested, even if it is a tough one, you will finish. If you're not interested, even if it's a cakewalk, you will find it like a torture. So it depends on how you feel at that moment in that context, and listen to it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Shashikala. I think we have had a very engaging conference, not only for the students, but for all parents of the students, because they would also be listening to this, and they will be aware of what options are there before their children. So thank you very much for joining me, and I wish you best of luck in your selections for your school. I think this CLAT is, in August, if I'm not mistaken. The CLAT is supposed to be in August.
CLAT is going to be in the last weekend of July. Our Symbiosis Law Admission Test, SLAT, is going to be on the 19th of July.
Okay.
We are a week prior to them.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And students, all of you who are viewing this or will view it later, please give due thought to what Dr. Shashikala said. Thank you very much, Dr. Shashikala, and to all our media partners, Malenadu TV, Global TV, News Karnataka, and V4 News. Thank you very much for joining me, Dr. Shashikala.
Thank you, Brian, and I thank all the channel partners of yours. All the best, and this is a great service you have done to the legal community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll